I want money, and the moment I want it, something inside tightens. Not excitement, not hope, discomfort, almost like wanting became wrong, like desire stopped feeling safe. Maybe you know this feeling. You're not desperate, you're not chasing. You just quietly stopped wanting. And people call that peace, they call it detachment, they call it trust. But inside, it doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like something went numb. So if you've ever thought, I want money, but wanting feels wrong now, this video is for you. Because by the end of this, you'll understand what made desire feel unsafe, and how to want again without pressure, without guilt, and without turning it into another job. This doesn't usually show up in dramatic ways, it shows up quietly. You stop checking your bank account, not because you're free, but because looking feels heavy. You delay opening bills. Not out of irresponsibility, but because something inside tightens when you do. You tell yourself, it doesn't matter. I don't need much. I'm okay. And on the surface it sounds wise. You sound calm, spiritual, detached, but underneath, there's a flatness, less interest, less movement, less connection to wanting anything at all. You might even say it out loud. I don't need anything. And people nod. They respect it. They call it growth. But inside it doesn't feel like peace. It feels muted, like desire didn't resolve and it just went quiet. And this is the part almost no one names, because what you're experiencing is not enlightenment, it's protection. It's your system learning that wanting creates tension and choosing numbness instead. Not because you're doing something wrong, not because you failed the law, but because at some point, wanting started to feel unsafe. So here is the real problem. Wanting money started to feel wrong because your nervous system learned that wanting equals danger. Not logically, not consciously, but biologically. Your body learned that desire leads to tension, to pressure, to disappointment, to having to hold yourself together. So it adapted. This is not a mindset issue. You're not blocked. You're not limiting yourself. You're not thinking wrong. This is not a faith issue. You don't lack trust. You don't lack belief. You didn't lose alignment. And this is not about doing the law incorrectly. You didn't misunderstand Neville. You didn't miss a technique. You didn't fail to persist. What happened is much quieter than that. At some point, wanting stopped feeling neutral. It stopped feeling open. It stopped feeling alive. And it started feeling risky. So your system did what it always does when something feels unsafe. It pulled back. It reduced desire. It softened expectations. It learned how to want less so it wouldn't have to feel the strain. Not to punish you, not to sabotage you, but to protect you. And once you see this clearly, everything else makes sense. Because this didn't happen for one reason. It happened for three. Three hidden reasons that slowly taught your system that desire was something to manage, control, or avoid. And once we look at those three reasons, you'll understand why wanting money started to feel wrong, even though nothing is wrong with you. Here's the first hidden reason. Wanting didn't disappear. It changed shape. At some point, wanting money stopped being something natural and started becoming something you had to do correctly. Desire turned into a task, not consciously, quietly. You didn't just want money anymore. You wanted to want it the right way, with the right thoughts, the right feelings, the right inner posture. And this is where things shifted. Techniques stopped being tools and became supervision. Affirmations became monitoring. Awareness became inspection. Self-reflection became surveillance. You started watching yourself, checking thoughts, correcting reactions, noticing every emotional fluctuation. And at first it feels responsible. It feels disciplined. It feels spiritual. It feels mature. But over time, something subtle happens. You stop relating to desire as movement and start relating to it as performance. You measure every thought. Was that thought aligned? Did I just mess it up? Am I still in the state? You panic when you feel off. Not because anything actually happened, but because being off feels dangerous. Because now there is something to maintain, so you try to hold the state, like a job, like something fragile that could fall apart if you stop paying attention. And holding is exhausting. Holding requires vigilance. Holding requires effort. Holding requires constant self-control. And the nervous system feels that. It doesn't hear, I'm growing. It hears, I can't relax. This is where money starts to feel heavy. Not because money is heavy, but because wanting it now comes with responsibility. with pressure, with self-judgment, with the fear of doing it wrong. So desire tightens, because when money becomes a test of worthiness, desire turns into pressure. And pressure always creates the next problem: guilt. After pressure comes guilt. Not loud guilt, quiet guilt, the kind that sounds reasonable, even spiritual. It starts with thoughts like these: if I want money, I'm not spiritual enough. If I still desire, I must be in lack. If I'm trying, I don't really trust God. And none of these thoughts feel aggressive. They feel mature, responsible, evolved. But watch what they do. They turn wanting into a moral issue. Now it's not just I want money. It becomes, should I want money? Is this desire proof that I'm not there yet? Am I failing spiritually by wanting more? So every time desire arises, something else arises with it: judgment. And judgment is heavy, because guilt doesn't correct desire. It poisons it. You start wanting and immediately questioning yourself. You start feeling movement and immediately pulling back. So the system learns something very simple. If wanting makes me feel wrong, I'll stop wanting. Not consciously, automatically. Your system stops wanting to avoid feeling wrong. And this is where shutdown begins. You don't renounce desire because you transcended it. You renounce it because it hurts to hold. You tell yourself you're beyond money. You tell yourself you don't need anything. You tell yourself you're at peace. But inside, there's relief mixed with emptiness, because guilt always shrinks life. Now here's the correction that matters, and this is fully Neville compatible. Wanting is not lack. Wanting is direction. Lack says, I am without. Direction says, this is where I'm moving. Neville never taught that desire was a flaw. He taught that desire reveals the state you're meant to occupy. Desire is not proof you're failing. It's information. It shows you where life wants to expand through you. Guilt interrupts that signal. It tells you to stop listening to yourself. So instead of desire leading you forward, it gets buried. And when desire gets buried, nothing feels alive anymore. But there's an even deeper layer to this, because this pattern didn't start with manifestation. It didn't start with Neville. It didn't start with spirituality at all. It started earlier than that. This layer goes further back, before manifestation, before spirituality, before Neville. It's about how you learn to survive. If you were the responsible one early on, if you learned not to ask for help, if depending on others felt risky, then you learned something important. You learned how to regulate yourself alone. You learned how to stay composed, how to manage your emotions, how to not need too much, not because it was healthy, because it was necessary. And that wiring doesn't disappear when life changes. It adapts. So later, when money enters the picture, it doesn't register as neutral. It registers as emotional risk, because wanting money means hoping, and hoping means vulnerability. It means opening yourself to disappointment, to waiting, to uncertainty, and vulnerability used to hurt. So the system remembers, not as a story, as a sensation: tightness in the chest, a pullback in the body, a quiet, don't go there. So instead of wanting openly, you learn to distance yourself from desire. You soften it, you spiritualize it, you call it surrender. You tell yourself you're detached, but what's actually happening is simpler. You're protecting yourself because detachment feels safer than hope. It doesn't ask anything from you. It doesn't expose you. It doesn't risk disappointment. And when you've been the one holding yourself together for a long time, safety becomes more important than expansion. So you call it detachment, but it's actually self-protection. Not a flaw, not a failure, just an old strategy still doing its job. And once this is seen, the shame starts to dissolve, because you're not avoiding money. You're avoiding the vulnerability that wanting once required, and that's the moment where everything can change. Because protection doesn't need to be fought, it needs to be understood. This is where almost everyone goes wrong, not because they're careless, not because they don't understand, but because they feel the discomfort and instinctively try to make it stop. When desire starts to feel unsafe, the system looks for relief, and almost everyone reaches for one of two solutions. They look opposite on the surface, but they come from the same place. The first solution is control. Control feels responsible. It feels proactive. It feels like you're doing something. So you increase technique. You affirm more precisely. You visualize longer. You correct thoughts faster. You start monitoring your inner world closely. What did I just think? Was that aligned? Did I react wrong? Am I still in the state? At first, this feels like mastery. You tell yourself you're being disciplined, committed, serious about the law, but what's actually happening internally is very different. Your nervous system doesn't hear confidence, it hears surveillance, it feels watched, it feels evaluated, it feels like something could go wrong at any moment. So desire no longer feels like movement, it feels like responsibility, like something fragile that must be maintained. And when desire becomes something you have to manage correctly, the body never relaxes, because now there's always a risk, the risk of slipping, the risk of thinking the wrong thing, the risk of losing the state. So the system stays alert, and alert systems don't feel safe wanting, they feel tense. So control, instead of restoring desire, actually increases the pressure around it, and pressure always has a cost. Eventually, the system gets tired. That's when people move into the second solution. Disappearance. This one looks spiritual, even wise. Instead of trying harder, you step back. You say things like, I don't need money. I'm above material things. I'm just trusting God. I've let go completely. And again, none of this sounds wrong. On the surface, it sounds peaceful, detached, centered. But internally, something else is happening. You're not relaxing into life. You're stepping out of it. You stop engaging with desire. You stop imagining. You stop caring. Not because fulfillment arrived, but because caring started to feel heavy. So the system chooses relief. Relief from pressure. Relief from effort. Relief from vulnerability. And it calls that relief surrender. But surrender that removes you from life is not peace, it's shutdown. So now you have two extremes: control, trying to force desire into safety through effort, or disappearance, removing desire entirely to avoid pressure. Both feel logical, both feel justified, and both are attempts to solve the same problem. Wanting doesn't feel safe, so the system either tightens around it or withdraws from it. What almost no one is shown is that there is a third option, one that doesn't require effort and doesn't require disappearance, rest with presence. This is the option that doesn't ask you to manage desire and doesn't ask you to abandon it. It asks you to stay, not to perform a state, not to hold anything together, just to remain present without pressuring yourself. Rest with presence means this: you allow desire to exist without immediately correcting it. You notice wanting money without turning it into a spiritual problem. You don't force yourself to feel confident, and you don't shame yourself for wanting. You let the sensation be there without supervision. This is very different from both control and shutdown. Control says, I need to fix this feeling. Shutdown says, I need to stop feeling altogether. Presence says, I can be here without fixing or leaving. And this matters because the nervous system learns through experience. When it learns that wanting doesn't lead to punishment, judgment, or constant self-monitoring, it begins to soften. And when pressure drops, desire doesn't need to be forced. It starts to return on its own. Not dramatically, not emotionally, naturally. This is why so many people never stabilize a state. They think the choice is between trying harder or wanting less, between control or detachment, but neither one creates safety. Safety comes from removing the strain, from allowing desire to exist without turning it into a test. So the correction here is not more technique, and it's not spiritual withdrawal, it's learning how to want without bracing yourself, to stay engaged without pressure, to rest without disappearing. And once that option becomes available, the entire dynamic changes. Because desire no longer has to be managed or eliminated, it can finally breathe. This is where Neville's teaching gets misunderstood the most. And it's not because it's complex, it's because people quietly add effort where Neville never placed it. So let's make this clean. A state is not something you hold. A state is where you return. That distinction alone changes everything. Holding implies effort. It implies vigilance, maintenance, the sense that something could slip if you stop paying attention. Living in a state feels very different. It feels ordinary, undramatic, stable. You don't hold your personality together all day. You don't maintain your identity consciously. You don't wake up checking if you're still yourself. You live from it. That's what Neville meant by a state. A state is not created through force. It's revealed by habit. It's the position you naturally return to when you're not trying. And this is where exhaustion enters the picture, because many people turn the state into something they have to manage. They try to stay in it. They monitor themselves. They watch their thoughts. They watch their reactions. They watch their feelings. Am I aligned? Did I drop the state? Am I still there? And without realizing it, they step outside the state they're trying to inhabit, because monitoring always creates distance. The moment you watch yourself, you're no longer living from the state. You're evaluating it, correcting it, checking it, and distance creates instability, not because you did something wrong, but because distance removes naturalness. This is why holding exhausts people. Holding requires effort. Effort requires energy. And no nervous system can sustain constant self-monitoring forever, so the system gets tired, and when it gets tired, it either tightens further or collapses. This is why people burn out. Not because the law doesn't work, but because they turned the state into a job. Neville never taught self-control. He wasn't saying, manage your inner world perfectly. He was pointing to self-location. Where are you standing when you stop trying? That place tells the truth, because states don't reveal themselves when you're tense. They reveal themselves when you're relaxed enough to return naturally. Think about this in simple terms. When wealth is a state, you don't wake up reminding yourself to be wealthy. When security is a state, you don't rehearse calmness. When love is a state, you don't monitor whether you're doing it right. You respond naturally. Effort is always a sign that you're standing outside the state. Living feels very different from holding. Holding feels tight. Living feels settled. Holding feels like vigilance. Living feels like familiarity. Holding feels fragile. Living feels stable. This is why so many people feel confused. They think the work is to maintain a feeling, but feelings fluctuate. States don't. A state is revealed through how you return, how you speak to yourself under pressure, how you respond to delay, how you interpret moments of uncertainty. Those reactions show where you live, and when someone is exhausted, it's often because they've been trying to hold a state instead of letting it become the place they rest in. You don't enter a state by tightening. You enter it by settling, and settling doesn't require effort, it requires safety. Once the body feels safe enough to stop bracing, the state stabilizes on its own, not because you forced it, but because you finally stopped standing outside yourself. This is the Neville point most people miss. The state was never meant to be held, it was meant to be lived. Burnout happens when living turns into maintaining. And here's the important part. Living a state doesn't mean you never feel pressure. It means pressure doesn't relocate you, it doesn't push you into effort, and it doesn't push you into collapse. You remain. Naturalness is the real indicator. Not excitement, not certainty, not emotional intensity. Naturalness. When something is natural, you stop checking it, you stop proving it, you stop asking if it's working. You live from it. So the question isn't, how do I hold the state better? The real question is, where do I return when I stop trying? That place is the state. And once you understand this, another question naturally appears, a very important one. So how do you want money again without flipping into pressure? This is the bridge, not from lack to abundance, but from pressure to safety. Because you don't need to learn how to want money, you already know how. What you need is to remove what made wanting feel dangerous. So this section is not about doing more, it's about doing less, with clarity. We're not chasing results here. We're restoring permission, and it starts very simply. Step A, name it, simply. Say this internally or out loud. I want money. That's it. No explanation, no justification, no spiritual framing. Not, I want money so I can help people. Not, I want money but I'm grateful already. Not, I want money but only if it's aligned. Just the truth. I want money. Notice what happens in your body when you say it. Not to fix it, not to analyze it. Just notice. This step matters because naming something clearly removes internal tension. When you don't name desire, the system keeps bracing against it. Naming is not demanding. It's honest. Step B. Remove morality. This is crucial. Wanting money is not bad. It's not shallow. It's not a spiritual flaw. And wanting is not proof of lack. Lack says, I am without, and I am less because of it. Wanting says, this is where I'm oriented. Direction is not deficiency. A compass pointing north is not failing because it's not there yet. So drop the moral weight. Money is not a test of character. Desire is not a measurement of worth. When morality leaves, the body softens, and softness is what allows desire to exist without pressure. Step C. Shift from desperation to orientation. This is a subtle but powerful shift. Desperation sounds like this. I need this to happen. I can't relax until this changes. I need proof. Orientation sounds different. This is where I'm going. No urgency, no pleading, just direction. Orientation doesn't demand speed. It doesn't collapse if nothing happens today. It simply knows where it's headed. And when desire becomes orientation instead of desperation, it stops attacking the nervous system. It stops feeling like survival. It starts feeling like movement. Step D. Use one simple state phrase. Not many. Not constantly. 1. Slow, gentle, neutral. Here are a few options. Choose one that feels least charged. Money feels safe to have. Pause. I can hold more without pressure. Pause. I don't need to deserve what's already mine. Pause. You're not trying to convince yourself. You're introducing safety. Say it once, then stop. Repetition works when it's soft, not when it's forced. Step E. Tiny embodiment cue. Nothing dramatic. No visualization. No posture. Just this. Exhale slowly. Let your shoulders drop. Unclench your jaw. That's it. The body needs a signal that wanting doesn't require bracing. This is how desire reopens safely. Not through effort, not through belief, through permission. When the body learns, I can want without being punished, desire stops shutting down. It doesn't rush back. It doesn't explode. It returns quietly, naturally. And that's exactly how it's meant to come back. Now we need to talk about the part almost everyone avoids, because this is where people either stabilize or quietly sabotage themselves. Here it is, clearly stated. Assuming wealth is not pretending bills don't exist. That misunderstanding creates more inner conflict than almost any other idea in this space. Grounded faith is not denial. It is not closing your eyes. It is not avoiding numbers. It is not refusing to engage with what's in front of you. And it is definitely not waiting passively while calling that trust. That isn't faith. That's avoidance dressed up as spirituality. And avoidance always disconnects you from presence. Real assumption is much more grounded than that. You can open your bank account and still live in the state. You can look at a bill and not collapse internally. You can take action without leaving the assumption, because the assumption is not proven by what you avoid. It's revealed by how you respond. This is the correction most people need. Assuming wealth does not mean you refuse to deal with reality. It means reality no longer defines who you are. You don't fight the facts. You don't dramatize them either. You meet them from a stable position. This is the sentence that anchors everything. I handle what's here, from who I am now. Say it again, slowly. I handle what's here, from who I am now. Notice what that does inside. There's no panic in it, no bravado, no pretending, just orientation. You are not saying, this shouldn't be happening. You are not saying, this proves I failed. You are saying, I am here, and I can respond. That is grounded faith. Grounded faith does not require you to feel good all the time. It does not require certainty. It does not require emotional elevation. It requires presence. This is where people get confused. They think faith means never feeling tension. But tension is just sensation. Collapse is identity loss. You can feel sensation and still stay located. That's the difference. So let's look at how this plays out in real life. You open a bill, old pattern. Your body tightens. Your mind jumps ahead. Stories appear instantly. I'm behind. I should be further. This means it's not working. And then comes the spiritual layer. I shouldn't feel this way. I need to correct my state. I shouldn't even be dealing with this. That stack creates pressure. New position. You open the bill. You notice the sensation, the tightness, the reaction, and you stay. I handle what's here, from who I am now. No arguing, no explaining, no self-correction. You don't leave yourself. You pay the bill. Or you plan how to handle it, and your identity stays intact. This is what integration looks like. Another example, taking action. A lot of people think that if they take action around money, they must not trust the law. But action itself is neutral. It's the position behind it that matters. Action taken from fear pulls you out of the state. Action taken from stability expresses it. So the question is not, should I act or not? The real question is, from where am I acting? Are you acting to relieve panic, or are you acting because life is moving? You can send an email, make a call, apply for something, say yes or no, and still remain in the assumption. You don't leave the state by participating in life. You leave the state by panicking about participation. This is why pretending breaks people. Pretending requires tension. You have to ignore facts, suppress reactions. Convince yourself constantly that everything is fine. That's exhausting, and the nervous system feels that contradiction. But when assumption is real, there is no inner argument. You don't need to convince yourself. You simply move from a different place. Here's another everyday example. You notice money anxiety show up. Old pattern. You rush to affirm. You rush to correct the thought. You try to force calm. New position. You notice the anxiety, and you don't make it mean anything. You stay present. I handle what's here, from who I am now. Anxiety is a sensation, not a verdict. When you stop interpreting sensation as failure, the system relaxes, and relaxed systems integrate. This is why so many people swing between extremes: hope, then collapse; effort, then numbness; trying, then disappearing. Because they never learned how to stay present with reality without losing themselves. Integration solves that. You don't escape life. You inhabit it. You let reality move without letting it define you. This is why money stops being such a charged topic when assumption becomes grounded. You stop chasing it. You stop avoiding it. You engage with it normally. And normal is powerful. Normal means stable. You're not waiting for proof to feel safe. You're not pretending nothing exists. You're simply located, and location is what stabilizes the state. This is the part people don't hear enough. The law does not respond to denial. It responds to position. Where are you standing inwardly when you respond to life? Are you braced or are you settled? Two people can do the same thing, pay the same bill, make the same move. One collapses internally, the other stays intact. The difference is not the action, it's the identity behind it. That's why this phrase matters so much. I handle what's here, from who I am now. It gives the nervous system something it rarely had before: stability during engagement, not retreat, not control, presence. And when presence becomes familiar, desire no longer feels dangerous, because wanting no longer means losing yourself. You can want money and stay. You can engage with reality and remain intact. You don't have to choose between faith and function. That choice was always false. Faith is not the absence of engagement. Faith is engagement without identity collapse. And once that is embodied, money stops being a battlefield. It becomes part of life again. Not something you worship, not something you fear, something you can hold without pressure. Here's the reframe that changes everything. Desire is not the problem. Desire is a signal. When desire returns, it's not lack showing up. It's life force returning. Shutdown can feel peaceful, quiet, calm, but it's a calm without movement. Nothing pulls you forward. Nothing invites you outward. Nothing feels alive. Real peace feels different. It's quiet, but alive. There is interest. There is warmth. There is a gentle yes to life. So when wanting starts to come back, even softly, even awkwardly, that's not regression. That's safety rebuilding. Let's take a short moment here. Nothing to fix, nothing to force. Just listen. Pause. Notice your breath. Don't change it. Pause. Let your shoulders drop, just a little. Unclench your jaw. Now, without effort, let this sentence land. I am allowed to want. I am allowed to want money. I can want without pressure. Feel the difference between forcing desire and allowing it. If anything softens, that's enough. If nothing changes, that's also fine. This is not a test. Desire doesn't return through effort. It returns when the body feels safe enough to stay. And staying without pressure is what brings life back online. So let's bring this home. Wanting money felt wrong because desire got tied to pressure. What looked like peace was often protection, guilt, and fatigue. The new option is not control and not disappearance. It's desire without pressure, presence without performance. If this resonated, answer this in the comments. When did wanting start to feel unsafe for you? Just one sentence. And if you want the next video, I'll show you the difference between Sabbath and emotional numbness. Come back when the question returns.